The Beck Collective had ruled over 37 star systems for nearly 800 years. No species had ever challenged their dominance, and their warships struck fear across the galaxy. They were comfortable in their power, perhaps too comfortable. On a quiet shift aboard the flagship Dominant Will, Junior Scanner Officer Yoon sat up straight, her eyes widening at the console readings. A vessel had appeared at the edge of the Procyon system, one of the Collective's newest conquests. "Commander, unknown ship detected entering system boundaries," she called out, her voice echoing across the command bridge. Commander Tay looked up from his tactical display with mild interest. Another day, another primitive species to subjugate. He smoothed his decorated uniform and walked unhurriedly to the main scanner. "Show me," he ordered. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a sleek but oddly simplistic vessel. It had visible thrusters, external weapon mounts and armor plating that looked like it belonged in a museum compared to the smooth, integrated systems of Bayek warships. "Look at that thing," laughed Subcommander Han from beside him. "Are those actual external weapons? I haven't seen designs that crude since my history lessons." Commander Tay smiled thinly. "Origin?" Science Officer Dr. Kim, a serious man who rarely joined in the bridge banter, leaned forward at his station. "Unknown, Commander. The configuration suggests it comes from the Sol system. We have limited intelligence on that region. They call themselves humans." Tay nodded dismissively. "Another backwater species thinking they're ready for the stars. Standard intercept procedure. Let's show them who owns this part of space." The massive Beck warship changed course, its engines glowing, bright against the darkness as it moved to cut off the newcomer's path. 6 escort vessels followed in perfect formation. Dr. Kim frowned at his readings. "Commander, I'm getting unusual power fluctuations from the vessel. Their reactor signature doesn't match the ship's apparent technology level." "Sensor malfunction," said Commander Tay without looking back. "Run a diagnostic. That ship couldn't possibly—" "Sir, they're hailing us," called Communications Officer Jin. "Put it through. Let's hear the primitives beg for mercy before they've even seen our weapons." The main screen activated, but instead of a visual feed, only a simple audio message played. In a calm, measured voice, "This is Captain Park of the Earth Defense Force vessel Thermopylae. We are on a peaceful mission of exploration and wish to establish diplomatic relations with your people. We come in peace, but we will defend ourselves if threatened." The bridge crew exchanged amused glances. The Bayek hadn't engaged in diplomacy in generations. Why negotiate when conquest was so much more efficient? "Defensive capabilities?" Commander Tay asked his weapons officer. "Minimal, Commander. External kinetic weapon ports. What appears to be low-grade energy shielding. Nothing that could withstand." "Even our smallest destroyer." Dr. Kim spoke up again, his voice quiet but insistent. "Sir, I'm still getting anomalous readings. Their power output keeps fluctuating in ways that don't make sense for a ship that size." "Your sensors need recalibration, Doctor," Tay said dismissively. "Perhaps after this little demonstration, you'll have time to perform proper maintenance." He turned to his communications. "Officer, send our standard response to new species." Jin nodded and transmitted the message that had preceded the fall of countless civilizations. "Unknown vessel, you have entered territory claimed by the Beck Collective. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction." The human ship continued its approach, neither increasing speed nor changing course. "No response, Commander," reported Jin after a moment. Commander Tay smiled. This was always his favorite part. The moment when inferior species realized their mistake, when they understood they were facing something beyond their comprehension. "Perhaps they need a demonstration," he said, settling into his command chair. "Target their propulsion system. Low power. We don't want to damage our new acquisition too badly." "Targeting, Commander," confirmed Weapons Officer Sung, his fingers dancing across his console. "Ready to fire?" Commander Tay leaned forward slightly, savoring the moment. "Let the primitives learn who rules this sector. Fire." The Dominant Will's forward battery released a controlled burst of energy, a mere fraction of its true capabilities. It was meant to disable, not destroy. A warning shot that would leave the human vessel dead in space, ready for boarding and study. As the entire bridge crew watched confidently, No one noticed Dr. Kim's expression of growing alarm as his sensors finally decoded the strange readings coming from the human ship. "Commander Tay," he whispered. But his voice was lost in the excited chatter of the bridge crew, all eager to watch another easy conquest. Commander Tay laughed, certain that within minutes the human vessel would be added to his impressive list of subjugations. But something about Dr. Kim's concerned expression made his smile falter, if only for a moment. The weapon burst left the dominant Will's forward battery in a flash of blue light. Everyone on the bridge watched eagerly as it streaked across space, toward the human vessel. Commander Tay already had his next orders prepared. He would demand immediate surrender once their engines were crippled. But something impossible happened. The energy beam struck the Thermopylae's hull directly and simply vanished. No explosion, no damage, no scattered energy readings. The weapon's energy disappeared as if swallowed by a black hole. "What just happened?" Commander Tay demanded, rising from his chair. "Weapons, report." "Weapons," Officer Sung frantically checked his readings. "Sir, the beam hit directly, but there's no damage, no energy scatter. It's like their hull just absorbed it." "Impossible. Fire again, full power." A second, much stronger blast left the Beck warship. Again, the human vessel absorbed the attack without visible effect. The bridge fell silent. In 8 centuries of Bayek expansion, this had never happened. "Their hull shouldn't be able to do that," Sub-Commander Han whispered. "Nothing can do that, Doctor." Kim was bent over his science station, his fingers moving frantically across the controls. His face had gone pale. "Science officer, explain this," Commander Tay shouted. Dr. Kim looked up, his expression grim. "Sir, I've finally calibrated our sensors to properly read their vessel. The reason our initial scans showed inconsistencies is because—" He paused, swallowing hard. "Because we've never encountered technology like this before." He sent the scan results to the main view screen. The simple-looking human ship was suddenly revealed as something else entirely. Beneath its basic exterior lay layer upon layer of technology, so advanced it barely registered on Bayek scanning systems. "The outer hull is a form of quantum-locked material," Dr. Kim explained, his voice shaking slightly. "It doesn't reflect or deflect energy. It absorbs it. Completely. I've never seen anything like it outside theoretical papers." The bridge crew stared at the screen as Dr. Kim highlighted various parts of the ship. "Those aren't standard engines. They're antimatter reactors, dozens of them, each capable of powering our entire fleet. And those external weapon mounts, they're just decoys. The real weapons are housed internally and they're—" He trailed off. "They're what?" Commander Tay demanded. "I don't know," Dr. Kim admitted. "I can detect their presence but not identify them. Our sensors have no reference points. Nothing in our database matches these readings." The communications officer's console beeped. "Sir, we're receiving a message from the human vessel." The calm voice of Captain Park filled the bridge again. "Bayek vessel, we registered your weapons discharge. We consider this an act of aggression. This is your only warning. Any further hostile action will be met with appropriate response." The message ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Lieutenant Yoon whispered, "Why would they disguise such advanced technology behind a primitive exterior?" Dr. Kim had been digging through the limited files they had on Earth. His eyes widened as he found what he was looking for. "Sir, I think I understand," he said quietly. "According to our intelligence, humans evolved differently from most spacefaring species. While most races achieve unity and peace before developing interstellar travel, humans—" He paused, scanning the text. "Humans have been at war with themselves for most of their history." He looked up at the commander. "They've been fighting wars for thousands of years, against each other. They perfected weapons technology long before they reached the stars." The implications sank in across the bridge. "You're saying they deliberately made their ship look primitive?" Sub-Commander Han asked. Dr. Kim nodded slowly. "It's camouflage, like a jungle predator disguising itself as something harmless. They wanted to appear non-threatening until—" He didn't need to finish the sentence. "Commander." Tay stared at the seemingly simple ship on the view screen, now understanding what they were facing. Not a primitive species making its first stumbling steps into the galaxy, but something much more dangerous, a species born in conflict, tempered by war, and wise enough to hide its true nature. Their history shows thousands of wars, Dr. Kim continued, reading from the database. They fought with sticks and stones, then steel, then gunpowder, then nuclear weapons, all against themselves. They've experienced horrors we can barely imagine, and they survived it all. Commander Tay returned to his chair. His confidence evaporated. And now they're here in our territory. Sir, Dr. Kim added, his voice barely audible, the database indicates this is likely just a scout ship, one of their smallest vessels. The meaning was clear. If this small scout could absorb their most powerful weapons without effect, what could their actual warships do? Weapons Officer Sung broke the silence. Your orders, Commander? Tay stared at the screen, seeing the human vessel with new eyes. What he had dismissed as primitive now revealed itself as the product of a species that had turned warfare into an art form over millennia of bloody practice. Hold position, he ordered quietly. Don't fire again. But it was already too late. The human vessel was changing, its outer hull shifting as panels moved to reveal what lay beneath. Something was emerging from the Thermopylae, something that made Dr. Kim's senses scream with readings that defied explanation. They've been at war with themselves for millennia, Dr. Kim whispered, staring at his console in horror. They don't build ships like we do. They build them to survive the unimaginable. And now we've attacked them. Commander Tay watched as the human vessel's true nature revealed itself, and for the first time in his distinguished career, he felt something he'd never experienced before. Fear. Captain Sun-Hai Park stood calmly on the bridge of the Thermopylae, watching the alien vessel on the main view screen. She had served in Earth's Defense Force for 28 years and commanded ships for 15 of those. This wasn't her first contact situation, nor her first time being fired upon by a nervous alien species. Damage report, she requested, though she already knew the answer. No damage, Captain, replied Chief Engineer Huan from his station. The hull absorbed and redistributed the energy as designed. Power reserves are actually up by 3%, thanks to their contribution. A few quiet chuckles spread across the bridge. The crew of the Thermopylae had trained together for years. They were professionals, Earth's best, and they took pride in their ship's capabilities. They've fired twice, Captain, said First Officer Ju, his calm voice betraying just a hint of tension. Protocol suggests we should consider this confirmed. Hostile intent. Captain Park nodded slowly. She'd hoped for better from this first meeting with the Beck Collective. Earth had received transmissions from this region of space for decades, learning about the various species and their interactions. The Bayek had a reputation for aggression, but she had still hoped diplomacy might work. They're scanning us again, reported Sensor Officer Kang. Much more detailed scans this time. I think they've finally recalibrated their systems to get accurate readings. And what are they seeing? Asked Captain Park. Lieutenant Kang smiled slightly. Everything we want them to see. The outer camouflage shields are dropping as programmed now that they've shown hostility. On the massive Bayek warship, Commander Tay and his crew were watching with growing horror as the true nature of the human vessel revealed itself. The primitive exterior was peeling away, panels sliding aside to expose what lay beneath, a vessel made of materials and technologies beyond their comprehension. Back on the Thermopylae, Captain Park took a deep breath. She had hoped to avoid this. First contact protocols preferred peaceful interactions whenever possible, but the ship's AI had analyzed Beck communication patterns and cultural markers, calculating a 78% probability that the Beck would respond with aggression to any perceived weakness. They've chosen their path, she said quietly. Communications record this for the log. After receiving 2 unprovoked attacks from the Bayek vessel, we are authorized to respond according to defense. Protocol 5. Communications Officer Lee nodded, logging her words. Tactical. Prepare a single KP-7, Captain Park ordered. Minimal response, precision targeting. I want their main weapon systems disabled. Nothing more. Tactical Officer Jin's fingers danced across his console. KP-7 loaded and targeted, Captain. Their shields are formidable by conventional standards, but the projectile will pass through them as calculated. Captain Park nodded once. Fire. There was barely a sound as the weapon launched. On the outside of the Thermopylae, a small port opened, and a single projectile, no larger than a human fist, shot toward the Beck flagship at incredible speed. The Beck didn't even attempt to evade. Their sensors barely registered the small object before it passed effortlessly through their energy shields as if they weren't there. The projectile struck the flagship with surgical precision, embedding itself exactly where intended, at the connection point between their main weapons array and power distribution center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, across the Bayek, vessel weapons systems went dark, not destroyed, simply disabled. "Direct hit," reported Jin. "Their main weapons are offline. Secondary systems still functional. No casualties detected." Captain Park nodded with satisfaction. "We could have destroyed their entire ship. I want them to understand that." On the Beck flagship, chaos erupted. Commander Tay was shouting for status reports as systems failed across his vessel. "Weapons offline." "All of them," cried Weapons Officer Sung in disbelief. "How? That projectile was tiny." It carried a localized EMP charge precisely calibrated. "To our systems," Dr. Kim explained, his voice barely audible over the alarms. "It didn't damage the hardware, it just disabled everything. They knew exactly where to hit us and how." Back on the Thermopylae, Communications Officer Lee was monitoring the Beck communications. "Captain, their internal communications are frantic. Their scans are now showing our full weapons complement." "And what are they seeing?" asked First Officer Ju. Lee smiled slightly. "They're seeing that we carry over 200 more kinetic projectiles like the one we just fired, plus the graviton disruptors, the phase cannons, and the antimatter torpedoes." Captain Park nodded. "And their reactions?" "Panic," Lee said simply. "Complete panic, especially since—" She paused, listening to her earpiece. "Especially since their science officer just informed their commander that according to Earth fleet classifications in our databases, the Thermopylae is merely a scout vessel, the smallest class of ship in Earth's defense force." A hushed silence fell over the bridge as the implication sank in. The Bayek were realizing they had fired upon a vessel that could have destroyed their entire fleet without effort, and it was just a scout ship. "They're hailing us, Captain," Lee reported. "Their commander wishes to speak with you directly." Captain Park straightened her uniform. On screen, Commander Tay's face appeared, his expression a mixture of fear and forced dignity. The proud commander was clearly shaken. "Captain Park," he began, his voice surprisingly steady despite the circumstances, "it seems there has been a misunderstanding between our peoples." "You fired on my ship twice without provocation," Captain Park replied evenly. "That's not a misunderstanding. That's an act of war." Commander Tay swallowed visibly. We did not fully understand what we were facing. Your ship's appearance was misleading." "Defensive camouflage is standard procedure for Earth vessels," Captain Park explained. "We found it's better to be underestimated than overestimated during first contact situations. It helps us identify peaceful species versus hostile ones." The unspoken message was clear. The Bayek had failed the test. "What happens now?" Commander Tay asked, trying to maintain his dignity. Captain Park's expression remained neutral. "That depends on you. We disabled your weapons as a warning. We could have done much worse." In the background of the Beck transmission, Park could see Dr. Kim whispering urgently to his commander. The science officer had clearly been studying the human ship's capabilities and understood the full extent of what they were facing. "We would like to discuss terms," Commander Tay said finally. "Perhaps a mutual withdrawal and diplomatic representatives at a later date?" Park considered the request. Her orders were clear. Establish contact, defend if necessary, but avoid escalation if possible. "Agreed," she said finally. "You will withdraw your fleet from this system. We will continue our exploration mission. Earth will send diplomatic representatives to your homeworld within 30 days. Relief washed visibly over Commander Tay's face. "Agreed." As the transmission ended, Communications Officer Lee turned to her captain. "They're already preparing to withdraw, Captain, and they're sending urgent messages to their homeworld." She listened for a moment, then smiled. "They've just realized." "This is only our scout ship," Lee said quietly. Captain Park nodded. turning to look out at the vast expanse of stars. Let's hope they make better choices when they meet our actual warships. Captain Park watched the Bayek flagship on the view screen, its weapon systems still offline after the precision strike. The alien vessel hung in space, vulnerable but intact, exactly as she had intended. First contact situations were delicate, and despite the Bayek's initial aggression, Earth protocols demanded restraint whenever possible. "They're scanning us." "Again," reported Lieutenant Kang from the sensor station. "Very thorough scans this time. Let them look," Captain Park replied. "Diplomacy Officer Jin, prepare the standard historical package for transmission. I want them to understand who they're dealing with." Jin nodded, selecting files from the ship's database. "Standard package ready, Captain. Should I include the military conflicts section?" "All of it," Park confirmed. "They need to understand." On the Bayek flagship, Commander Tay and his officers huddled around Dr. Kim's science station, examining the readings from their latest scan of the human vessel. The more they learned, the more their alarm grew. "Their hull material isn't just absorbing energy," Dr. Kim explained. His voice hushed with a mixture of fear and awe. "It's converting it. Our weapons actually made them stronger." Sub-Commander Han shook his head in disbelief. "That shouldn't be possible. The energy conversion alone would require—" "Look," interrupted Dr. Kim, pointing to a new alert on his console. "They're transmitting data." Commander Tay straightened up. "What kind of data? Demands? Threats?" "No," replied Dr. Kim, scanning the incoming transmission. "It appears to be historical information about Earth and its people." Back on the Thermopylae, Captain Park spoke to her bridge crew. "They need to understand who we are and where we come from. It's the only way to establish meaningful communication going forward." First Officer Ju nodded. "The peaceful approach. You think they'll listen?" "They'll listen," Park said with quiet confidence. "We just gave them quite a demonstration of why they should." On the Bayek ship, Dr. Kim displayed the human historical data on the main view screen. The bridge crew fell silent as images and text streamed before them, the history of a species unlike any they had encountered before. Most spacefaring races in the galaxy followed a similar pattern. They developed technology, achieved planetary unity and peace, then reached for the stars. It was considered the natural evolution of intelligent life. First master your own violent tendencies, then explore the universe. Humans had taken a different path. The data showed a species that had been at war with itself since before it could write. Tribe against tribe, nation against nation, ideology against ideology. Weapons evolved from sticks and stones to swords and bows, to gunpowder and explosives, to nuclear weapons and beyond. "This can't be right," whispered Sub-Commander Han. No, species could survive this level of conflict, yet the evidence was undeniable. Humans had not only survived, they had thrived. Each conflict pushed their technology forward. Each war taught hard lessons that were incorporated into the next generation of weapons and defenses. Dr. Kim pointed to a section of the timeline. "Look here, even as they were developing their first space programs, they were in the midst of something called the Cold War, a decades-long standoff between superpowers that nearly destroyed their planet multiple times." Commander Tay studied the images of Earth's military history with growing horror. "They developed planet-killing weapons before they even left their atmosphere?" "Yes," confirmed Dr. Kim, "and they kept developing them even after." The Bayek officers watched footage of Earth's early space exploration, primitive by current standards, but remarkable considering it occurred while the planet was still divided into competing nations. "They didn't unite before reaching space," muttered Weapons Officer Sung. "They brought their wars with them." The historical package continued, showing how humans eventually achieved a tenuous global peace, not through natural evolution or enlightenment, but through hard-won lessons paid for in blood and suffering. When they finally did reach the stars, they encountered other species, some peaceful, some hostile. The data showed brief clips of Earth's first interstellar conflicts, short, decisive, engagements that always ended the same way, with human victory. "These weren't wars of conquest," Dr. Kim noted, reading the accompanying text. "They were defensive actions. In each case, Earth was attacked first." Commander Tay watched silently as the history unfolded. The pattern was clear. Humans avoided conflict when possible, but responded with overwhelming force when threatened. And each time their technology and tactics evolved further. "Look at the dates," Dr. Kim said quietly. "Each of these conflicts is separated by years, sometimes decades. They learn from each engagement. They adapt, they improve." The final section of the transmission focused on Earth's ships. Early vessels were indeed as primitive as the Thermopylae had initially appeared, but as threats emerged, their designs evolved, not toward intimidating appearances, but toward deadly efficiency disguised as simplicity. "Camouflage," Commander Tay whispered. "Their ships look basic by design." "A hunter's tactic," agreed Dr. Kim. "They don't want to frighten potential friends or alert potential enemies to their true capabilities." The transmission ended with a simple message. "Earth seeks peaceful relations with all species. We explore for knowledge, not conquest. We prepare for war so that we may preserve peace." The Bayek command bridge was silent for several long moments, as they processed what they had learned. "We've been expanding for 8 centuries, Commander Tay finally said, his voice subdued. "We've conquered 37 systems. Every species we've encountered has either surrendered immediately or fallen quickly." He turned to look at the human vessel on the view screen, the scout ship that had disabled his flagship with a single shot. "And then we met humans," he continued, "a species that has spent its entire existence fighting and surviving, a species that doesn't build weapons to intimidate. They build weapons that work." Dr. Kim nodded solemnly. "They've turned warfare into an art form, refining it through thousands of years of practice, and we fired on them." Communications Officer Jin's console beeped. "Sir, they're hailing us again." Commander Tay straightened his uniform, trying to reclaim some dignity. On screen, Captain Park appeared, her expression composed but alert. "Commander Tay, have you reviewed the information we sent?" "We have," Tay replied, his earlier arrogance gone. "Your species has an unusual history." "We are what our past has made us," Park acknowledged. "We don't glorify our conflicts, but we don't hide from them either. Each war taught us lessons we carry to the stars, including how to make your ships appear less threatening than they are," Tay observed. A small smile touched Park's lips. "We've found that friends don't need to be intimidated, and enemies are often deterred when they discover the truth." The unspoken message hung between them. The Bayek had failed to be deterred in time. "I understand now, Commander," Tay said quietly. "Your ship could have destroyed my entire fleet." "But it didn't," Park pointed out. "That's another lesson from our history. Winning isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about understanding." Tay nodded slowly, a new respect in his eyes. "You wish to establish diplomatic relations. Perhaps we should begin again." On the Thermopylae's bridge, Captain Park exchanged a hopeful glance with her officers. This was why they explored, not to conquer, but to connect, even with species who shot first and asked questions later. "I believe that would be beneficial for both our peoples," she replied. "Shall we start by explaining what brings Earth to this part of space?" The conversation shifted toward diplomacy, but neither side forgot what had happened. The Bayek had seen humanity's true nature, not just its technology, but its history. A species forged in conflict, tempered by war, and wise enough to prefer peace, but always prepared for the alternative. 24 hours had passed since the Thermopylae had disabled the Bayek flagship with a single shot. In that time, the mood aboard both vessels had transformed dramatically. On the Bayek command ship, engineering teams worked frantically to assess the damage, while medical staff treated injuries caused by system overloads during the attack. Commander Tay stood by the main viewport, staring at the human vessel that hung in space nearby. Its outer camouflage was partially retracted now, revealing glimpses of the advanced technology beneath. He'd spent his entire career conquering weaker species, expanding the collective's territory without serious challenge. Now, for the first time, he faced something the Bayek could not defeat. "Commander," called Dr. Kim from his station, "I've finished analyzing the weapon they used against us." Tay turned. "And?" "It was precise," Kim said, sounding almost impressed. The projectile contained a localized electromagnetic pulse generator perfectly calibrated to our shield frequency and weapons systems. It disabled everything without causing permanent damage. They could have destroyed us, Sub-Commander Han said quietly. Many times over, agreed Kim. From what I can calculate, a single antimatter torpedo from their arsenal would have been sufficient to vaporize our entire vessel. Tay nodded slowly. The question that had been haunting him since the attack finally escaped his lips. Then why didn't they? Before anyone could attempt an answer, Communications Officer Jin called out, "Commander, we're receiving a transmission." "From the human ship." "Put it through," Tay ordered. Captain Park's face appeared on screen. "Commander Tay, my medical officer informs me that several of your crew sustained injuries during yesterday's incident. We would like to offer assistance." Tay blinked in surprise. "You're offering to help us after we fired on you?" "We have advanced medical technology that could help with radiation exposure and neural shock," Park continued. "We'd be willing to send over a medical team, or your injured could be transported to our medical bay." Tay exchanged bewildered glances with his officers. In all the collective's history, they had never encountered a species that offered help to those who had attacked them. "Why would you help us?" he asked directly. Park's expression remained calm. "Because we can. Because it's the right thing to do. And because starting a relationship with medical assistance seems better than starting one with weapons fire from either side." The bridge fell silent as the bank officers processed this unexpected offer. "I would be grateful for your assistance," Tay finally said, his pride giving way to practical concern for his crew. "We have 12 injured, 3 seriously." Park nodded. "We'll prepare to receive them. Our medical bay can handle all 12 simultaneously." An hour later, Tay himself accompanied the injured to the Thermopylae, partly out of responsibility for his crew and partly out of burning curiosity. The human ship's interior was even more impressive than scans had suggested, clean, efficient, and humming with technology that the Bayek could barely comprehend. As human medical staff tended to the injured Bayek crew members with remarkable efficiency, Captain Park invited Commander Tay to join her in a small conference room overlooking the medical bay. "Your technology is beyond anything in our records," Tay admitted as they watched doctors work below. Park nodded. "We've had good teachers." "Other alien species?" "Those too," she said, "but mainly ourselves. Nothing drives innovation like necessity." Tay hesitated before asking the question that had been burning inside him. "You could have destroyed my ship the moment we fired on you. Why didn't you?" Park considered him thoughtfully. "Commander, what is the purpose of your military?" "To expand and protect the collective," he answered immediately. "The purpose of Earth's defense force is similar, to protect Earth and its allies," she explained. "Destroying your ship wouldn't have served that purpose. It would have made an enemy of your entire collective." "But we attacked you," Tay pressed. Park smiled slightly. "Commander, in humanity's long history of warfare, we've learned many lessons. One of the most important is knowing when not to fight." She stood and walked to a small display panel, activating it to show various historical images. "For thousands of years, we measured military success by what we destroyed," she explained. "But eventually we realized that true victory often comes from what you build instead." Tay watched the images, human conflicts giving way to cooperation, warships being repurposed for exploration. "Your history data package showed hundreds of wars," he said quietly. "And each one taught us something," Park replied. "The bloodiest. Lessons are often the ones you remember best." Tay was silent for a long moment. "The collective has never signed a peace treaty," he finally admitted. "In 8 centuries, we've only conquered or been conquered." Park met his gaze directly. "There's always a first time." 3 days later, aboard the Thermopylae, Captain Park and Commander Tay sat across from each other at a conference table. Between them lay a data tablet containing the first peace treaty the Beck Collective had ever signed with another species. "Your leaders approved this remarkably quickly," Park observed, as Tay applied his authentication code to the document. "They reviewed the battle footage," Tay said simply, "and Dr. Kim's analysis of your capabilities." He paused. "Fear can be persuasive." "We don't want your fear," Park said. "Just your respect and cooperation." Tay nodded slowly. You have the first. The second will take time. He looked down at the signed treaty. This establishes clear boundaries, diplomatic protocols, trade possibilities. It's more than I expected when you disabled our weapons. What did you expect? Park asked curiously. Destruction, Tay admitted. It's what we would have done. Perhaps that's why you've never signed a treaty before, Park suggested gently. Later that day, the two ships prepared to part ways. The Thermopylae would continue its exploration mission, while the Bayek fleet would return to their territory, minus the system they had been attempting to claim, which the treaty now designated as neutral space. On the Bayek flagship, Dr. Kim approached Commander Tay at the viewport. The humans are departing, sir. Their engines are powering up. Tai nodded, watching as the Thermopylae's outer hull closed. Again, once more resembling a simple exploration vessel, rather than the deadly warship he now knew it to be. Dr. Kim, send a message to all collective worlds, he ordered. Priority 1. What should it say, Commander? Kim asked. Tay kept his eyes on the human ship. It should say that we have encountered a species called humans. They appear peaceful, but possess technology far beyond our own. Their ships are deliberately designed to look primitive until threatened. Under no circumstances are they to be engaged in conflict. Kim nodded. And if other commanders ask why? Tell them that humans have turned warfare into an art form over thousands of years, Tay said quietly. Tell them that what we initially thought was primitive was actually perfect. Ships built for function rather than intimidation. Weapons designed to work rather than threaten. He turned to face his science officer. And tell them that humans' most dangerous weapon isn't their antimatter torpedoes or quantum-locked hulls. It's that they know exactly when to use their weapons and when to offer medicine instead. As the warning spread throughout the Beck Collective about the deceptively peaceful species with warships that could end their civilization, the Thermopylae slipped into faster-than-light travel, continuing its mission of exploration. On the bridge, Captain Park completed her log entry. First contact with the Beck Collective, initially hostile, resolved peacefully. Treaty established. Recommend diplomatic follow-up within 6 months. Contact file No. 37 closed. She closed the log and looked at the stars streaking past on the view screen. 36 peaceful first contacts before this one. One more resolved without lasting bloodshed. Not a perfect record, but a good one. Where to next, Captain? Asked First Officer Ju. Park smiled. Further out, there's still so much to explore. The Thermopylae continued its journey, its powerful weapons silent, its true nature once again concealed, a hunter's camouflage worn by a species that preferred peace but had mastered war. Just one small ship carrying humanity's greatest lesson to the stars. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is choose not to use your power at all.